My name is Michael Cervantes, and this is the Supreme Court Chief Justice Harlan F. Stone. Harlan F. Stone was born on October 11, 1872 in Chesterfield, New Hampshire. He graduated from Amherst College in 1894. He then attended Columbia Law School. There he was offered a position on faculty after graduation due to impressing his teachers with his intelligence. He remained at Columbia Law School as a professor, eventually becoming a dean. Meanwhile, he was also in private practice after having passed the bar in 1899, just a year after graduating from Columbia Law School. In 1924, President Calvin Coolidge appointed him to be U.S. Attorney General. He spent time improving the Department of Justice by reorganizing it and appointing J. Edgar Hoover as head of the FBI. The following year, Stone was appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court as an Associate Justice. He faced opposition in the confirmation process as people feared that he would be too protective of business interests due to him having contacts on Wall Street. He responded by appearing in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee, becoming the first Supreme Court nominee to do so. In 1941, President Franklin D. Roosevelt nominated Stone to become the Supreme Court's Chief Justice. Stone oversaw the Supreme Court during World War II, supporting the U.S. policy of internment for citizens who are of Japanese descent, in cases such as Hirabayashi versus the United States and Korematsu versus the United States. Stone remained the court's Chief Justice until he died from a cerebral hemorrhage on April 22, 1946. Stone left behind his wife Agnes and their two sons, Marshall and Lawson. My name is Michael Cervantes, and this is the Supreme Court case, Korematsu versus the United States. Following the bombing of Pearl Harbor by the Japanese, the United States government became wary of further attack from the Japanese. The wariness led to suspicion against even Americans of Japanese descent. They worried that Japanese Americans could commit espionage and aid the Japanese. In 1942, President Franklin D. Roosevelt signed Executive Order 9066, which forced West Coast Japanese and Japanese Americans into internment camps. Fred Korematsu was a United States citizen of Japanese descent and was able to avoid internment by having facial surgery done and by claiming he was a Mexican American. He was eventually found out and was arrested for violating an exclusion order that banned anyone of Japanese descent from San Leandro, California. At this time, there was no question that Korematsu was loyal to the United States and was not a threat to the American war effort. He appealed his conviction to the United States Court of Appeals, claiming that the relocation orders were beyond the powers of Congress, the military authorities, and the President. He also argued that the orders were unconstitutional since they only applied to those of Japanese descent. He was basically claiming that it was racial discrimination. The government argued that it was justified as it was necessary to the war effort and that there was no way of telling the loyal from the unloyal. After the Court of Appeals ruled against Korematsu, his appeal was taken to the Supreme Court in 1944 for violation of the Constitution and 14th Amendment, becoming Korematsu versus the United States. The Supreme Court decision was 6-3 in favor of the United States. They ruled that the need to protect the country, especially in a time of war, outweighed the rights of the Japanese and Japanese Americans. Justice Hugo Black wrote the majority opinion, stating, "But when under conditions of modern warfare, our shores are threatened by hostile forces, the power to protect must be commensurate with the threat and danger."